Hey, it's Storyworthy. Today on the show, comedian Les Kurkendaal-Barrett talks about his soap opera wedding.
So my friend was married and she lived in Hancock Park. And so my friend was like, well, I insist on throwing a party for you. Let's have a party. So we were like, okay. I gave her a list of 20 people and she's like, oh, come on, you can have more than that. How many people, what's my limit? And she's like, I don't know, 200? I had a friend who knew a food truck person, so my friend's like, well, we'll just throw this in, right? Friend was like, well, if you have any out-of-town guests who need a place to stay, they could just stay in this house. One of my other friends was like, you know what my gift will be to you? My gift will be your wedding cake. Someone donated the flowers.
Today on the show, comedian Les Kurkendaal-Barrett talks about his soap opera wedding. Stay close.
Hey, it's Les Kurkendaal-Barrett, and you are listening to Storyworthy.
Welcome to Storyworthy. My name is Christine Blackburn, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Whether you're a longtime fan of the show of over 12 years, or you're a new listener, welcome to Storyworthy. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the show last week, which was actually a promo for my other podcast, My Life in 3 Songs. You know, I've told the Storyworthy audience this before. I have about 5,500 Storyworthy listeners. But over on my new show, My Life in 3 Songs, I only have 225 or something. So the goal here, folks, on Storyworthy is for all of you people listening to get over there and listen to my new show, My Life in 3 Songs. So last week I did a promo on Storyworthy for My Life in 3 Songs, and there's 10 comedians on it. And so go back, listen to the show last week about My Life in 3 Songs, and then I bet you're going to head over to Spotify and follow My Life in 3 Songs for free because it is such a great show, and I'm very passionate about it, as you can tell. But also I'm passionate about my guest today on Storyworthy. His name is Les Kurkendaal-Barrett, and I've only known you for a couple of years, Les, but I feel like we've known each other longer because I think we're the exact same age, and I don't know, I feel very similar to you. What do you think?
I agree, because we are the exact same age.
Yeah, but I mean, we see each other at comedy, you know, we're out doing stand-up together, but you've also done so many solo shows, which I respect tremendously, because I've done 2 or 3, and it's a tremendous amount of work, and you keep pumping them out. Let me hear about that.
Well, so right now, I'm currently touring with my show called The Real Black Swan, Confessions of America's First Black Drag Queen, which is the true story of William Dorsey Swan, who was a former slave who became the queen of drag in the late 1800s.
Wow, are you kidding me?
Yeah, so, and it's a person who not a lot of people know about. So it's getting the word out there about her. So I'm touring with that, but I have been touring with solo shows since 2000.
Wow, for over 20 years.
Yeah.
You go to fringe festivals all over the world. I mean, I'm so impressed by that.
Thank you. And it's fun. And the reason why I started to do that is because, as you know, this is a very fickle, funny business as far as, you know, sometimes you will go for months and months and months and not book anything or get anything. And so instead of sitting around waiting for the phone to ring, I started to create my own work, and that is, you know, I created my own work, and it's working.
Yeah. I think it's so wonderful, really. I want to get into more of that, but also let me ask you something. When you say solo show, see, because when I say solo show, I'm thinking it's an autobiographical show. I don't know how to say that. You know, I didn't realize some of your shows, you're going out and talking about completely other people and doing their story.
But even though, like, for example, this show, The Real Black Swan, I'm telling William Dorsey Swan's story, but what my style is if I tell another person's story, I incorporate my story into it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, no matter what kind of show it is, there always is an autobiographical bent to it. And so my story gets involved with the other story.
That it comes through you. So how did you learn about that guy in the late 1800s and becoming the first drag queen, as it were? How did you learn of that? And then on stage, do you become him and then do you become her?
So literally a couple of years ago, a friend of mine sent me a text with a magazine article, and in the text is my friend, I'm going to give my friend Eleanor Kathleen O'Brien a shout out, by the way. So my friend Eleanor sent me this text saying, guess what? I think this would be a great solo show for you, and then sent me an article about William Dorsey Swan. So that is how I found out about her. And so what I do is I start out as me, and literally, so I'm playing two characters.
Okay.
So I'm playing myself, right, and I'm playing William Dorsey Swan. And so I bounce between the two of us, and so I start out telling my story, but as the show progresses, I morph into William Dorsey Swan. Wow, so by the end, I am her.
Wow, this is great. And William Dorsey Swan, that's the man's real name. The last name was Swan. Yes. That's a cool name.
With two N's.
Oh, that's a very cool name. So then you go ahead and you name the show The Black Swan. I think that's so clever. That is such a great name.
And so literally, I start off as me in boy clothes and progressively through the show get into drag. So by the end, I am in drag.
Wow, that is terrific, man. That is really clever. Really. I mean, it's like, well, like you said, you're using your own ingenuity to come up with content and to come up with, being and doing what you want. You don't sit around and wait to get cast. You're like, wait a minute, let me do this or let me do that. I do the same thing, Les. I think it's a wonderful way to live life out here in California. You got to produce on your own.
Exactly. And now, over 20 years later, yeah, I'm starting to get cast in stuff because of people seeing me in my show.
Yeah, well, in other words, you've made your career. You've made your content happen, and now you have a catalog, and you've got this whole quiver of content, and I think it's very impressive.
Right. Oh, thank you. And I booked a pilot for someone seeing me in the show. So it's finally, like I said, 20 years later, it's finally starting to work.
Well, you certainly deserve it, I'll tell you that. And today you bring forth the topic soap opera wedding, which I'm really excited to hear about. Now, I know that, I don't know if it's all over the world or if it's just our country. I'm going to go all over the world, that people dream of a certain wedding day and what it's going to be like and what they're going to wear and the colors and the people and the music. And so when I hear soap opera wedding, it just sounds like it's going to enhance all of that.
Well, yeah.
Oh, don't tell me the story yet, but I do want to talk a little bit about your podcast, A Lifetime of Hallmark. So here on this show called A Lifetime of Hallmark, you and a couple of other friends talk about movies not only on Hallmark, but on Lifetime, hence the title, A Lifetime of Hallmark. And you guys try to make sense of these hilarious, incredible movies that they put on Hallmark and Lifetime. What a great idea. How did you come up with this idea?
Okay, so, oh my God. Okay, so back in it was 2015 going into 2016. Oh wait, what was, no, it was 2016.
Okay.
It was 2016. It was after the election that shall not be named with Orange Voldemort. And so that holiday, everybody, was really bummed out and really just in bad moods and bummed out. And every time I looked at social media, it was like bitching about the outcome of the election, which, okay, I was bitching too. I was not happy either. But Facebook started to bum me out so much that I was like, you know what I'm going to do, people? I'm going to watch a Hallmark movie a day, and then I'm going to post about it. And I'm going to and you guys are going to read it, and you're going to love it. So I literally started watching a Hallmark movie a day. I would post about it and give a little review. And so, a month, actually it was 3 weeks in, for some reason, I missed a day, and on my feed the next day were all of these messages. Where is it? Where is it? Where's the review? Where's the review?
Oh, my God. Because people needed the levity. We were all in shock. Everybody was in shock when Trump got elected. And so I hear you. I hear what you're saying. Everybody needed something. So you start watching Hallmark movies.
So then I have this straight friend named Kurt, who's a fellow performer who I know from touring and stuff. And so Kurt would always leave a snide remark every, on my reviews. On my post. So, enough people said this would be a great podcast. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm turning this into a podcast, and Kurt, you're going to do the podcast with me, and I'm going to torment you talking about these movies.
That's hilarious.
And that is how the podcast was born. So initially, it was just Hallmark.
Right.
It was just, and it had the podcast had a different name and everything. But then we, for some reason, watched a Lifetime movie because as you know, Hallmark movies are sickeningly sweet and lovey-dovey. And then, on Lifetime movies, the woman's chaining her boyfriend up in the basement and stuff like that. So then we realized, oh my gosh, we should include Lifetime movies into the mix because since they're polar opposites, let's talk about a Hallmark movie and then talk about the same kind of movie, but on the opposite side of the spectrum the next week. And right. And then we got then my friend Jason, I was at a party at his house. He was telling me how he liked the podcast. I invited him on as a guest 2 years ago, and he's still with us too.
That is so funny. That is awesome. So I'm trying to think, I don't watch those movies. It's not that I don't think it's entertaining or fun. I guess I don't have time. I'm not sure why I don't, but I do know that the Hallmark Christmas movies are really big, and they start right now, beginning of October.
Next week. It starts.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because from the channel standpoint, it's very smart because people are so in love with these movies, and in their defense, if you're going through a stressful day or if you're having a stressful life, it is an hour and a half of your life where you could literally sit there, turn your brain off, be entertained, and know that the outcome of the movie is going to be happy.
So what is the premise of every Hallmark movie?
So the majority of the movies, premise, and I pretty much have the routine down. Premise: girl in the city, very busy, a career girl who's busy, for some reason has to go back to her old town where her daddy's company or her family's company or something like that is in trouble. She goes back home to save the company, meets her old boyfriend who she left to go to the big city. They fall in love. The end.
Oh my gosh, Les, I wish my audience could see. You guys, I wish you could see Les and how animated he is. I have never seen you more excited than when you just gave that synopsis. You really got into it. You're waving your hands around and you go, okay, premise. And you got a sparkle in your eye. Oh, Les, this is so for you. This entire genre has just got you all over it. You are so funny. And today, like I said, you bring forth the topic soap opera wedding. So I'm anxious to hear this story. I know I've been married twice, and the first one I did really care about making it was as perfect as it could be. And, and I was only 25. I was a kid,
Oh, gosh. Okay.
I know. I was a kid. It only lasted a year. It was nothing. But I had these two little flower girls. They were my nieces and they were both 5. And it was starting to drizzle outside. It was an all outdoor wedding. Like, what are you thinking? You live in Pittsburgh and you think automatically you're just going to have this outdoor wedding with no option to go inside. And now, of course, it starts to rain, So I'm getting ready in this house and we're, the wedding's in the garden and my little nieces come in. They go, it's raining. And I shot across the room and I go, get the fuck out of here. Like I lost it. I was total bridezilla. Oh my gosh. And then I remember the pink that came on the ribbon of the flowers. It was like a cotton candy pink and I wanted a hot pink and that almost made me lose it. It's just so funny, the pressure people put on their weddings. And then the second time I got married, exactly 10 years later, I let my husband's family kind of plan everything. And I bought a dress and I showed up. And that worked better, letting the pressure off. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm anxious to hear what this soap opera wedding's all about. But before we get to your story, I did want to remind everybody to please check out my Life in 3 Songs over on Spotify. This is my brand new podcast that talks about comedians sharing 3 songs that have impacted their lives. I use Spotify because they let us use their music licensing. And so me and the comedian sit down and also listen to the song. So head over to mylifein3songs.com. You'll find out more about the show and follow My Life in 3 Songs on social media at My Life in 3 Songs. And of course, you'll find Storyworthy there as well at Storyworthy. All right, you guys, he's here right now. You've heard him talking. Les Kurkendaal-Barrett. He has spent his life telling stories, and so then he decided to pursue it professionally. Now, like we talked about, Les has been touring fringe festivals off and on since 2000. He's been to fringe festivals all over the world, including the Wellington Fringe and the New Zealand Fringe, the Halifax Fringe, and it seems like every fringe festival in the United States, including Minnesota, Oklahoma, Kansas, the whole Midwest. It's so impressive. And like I said, you do have the podcast, A Lifetime of Hallmark. You guys can find that wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can find more about Les over at his website, leskurkendaal-barrett.com. I'm going to spell it because I'm a giver. Les, Les, we all know that. Yes. Now here we go. Kurkendaal-Barrett. It's 2 last names. Kurkendaal, Kurkendaal, Barrett, Barrett. 2 R's, 2 T's, .com. And you can also follow Les over there on Instagram at Kurkendaal, Kurkendaal. All right, you guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for Les Kurkendaal-Barrett.
Thank you. All right, so I guess I should start from the very, very, very beginning. So my very first memory was an episode of General Hospital. I was being babysat by my cousin. My mom worked during the day, and I remember that in the scene, it was Audrey, and Audrey was having an affair with Dr. Hardy, and so Audrey's husband found out about it, and Audrey and little Tommy were in danger. Seriously, my very first memory. So in the 80s, I was a teenager in the 80s. So in the 80s, it was the decade of the soap opera. Now, I was an ABC soap person, so I watched All My Children with my girl, Erica Kane. And Erica Kane, she'd been married for 13 times, and Erica Kane always had a fabulous wedding. I was also around in the era of Luke and Laura. And so, remember Luke and Laura on General Hospital? They went on the run because they were trying to save the world from the evil Cassidines and the Ice Princess, because the Cassidines were going to freeze the world. And Luke and Laura stopped them. And the reason why it was called there was a big diamond called the Ice Princess that was going to freeze the world, right? So after the Luke and Laura saga, which ran for a very long time, Luke and Laura decided to get married. Now, This was the highest rated soap opera episode to date.
Wow.
To date. Now, this storyline was so popular that Elizabeth Taylor, yes, that Elizabeth Taylor, word got out that Elizabeth Taylor was a fan of the show, and so they created a character for Elizabeth Taylor so she could be at the show. As a matter of fact, Elizabeth Taylor was Helena Cassadine, the one who was going to freeze the world. All right? And so, because of Erica Kane, because of Luke and Laura, I got an imprint into my little teenaged, closeted gay mind of the soap opera wedding. So the soap opera wedding is always a big, glamorous, fabulous wedding on some sort of a mansion. There are hundreds and hundreds of people there. It is splashy. There is no expense spared. And that is what I wanted for myself. Now, at the time, like I said, I was a little closeted gay kid, and so I knew in my mind that, I had that fantasy of wanting to have that soap opera wedding, but it was never going to happen because I was not, A, I wasn't out, but B, even if I was out, I would never be allowed to get married because it wasn't legal, right? Right. So, cut to years and years and years and years later, gay marriage is finally made legal. And at the time, I was in a long-term relationship, but he didn't want to get married. Right? And so I resigned myself to the fact that I would never get married. Well, that relationship, when I turned 50, that relationship broke up.
Really?
All right?
How long were you guys going out?
We were together for 13 years.
Holy cow.
And so then, as we were breaking up, he says, oh, well, you know what? I always wanted to get married. I just didn't want to marry you.
Ugh.
So, And so in my mind, I was like, oh yeah, well, guess what? I'm going to get married, and I'm going to get married before you. Literally, that's what popped up in my mind. So we break up. And when we broke up, life was a lot different than when I started dating him. Like, for example, like the apps were not a thing when I started dating him. Mm-hmm. The internet dating was not, it was around, but it was not a thing. As a matter of fact, when I got into that relationship, you made fun of it. You made fun of internet dating. So I'm 50, I'm suddenly single, and I'm like kind of in shock because I'm like, what the hell is going on, right? And so I'm moving out of our house. I come back to get something, and I catch him online making his internet profile. And so I was like, oh yeah, I'll show you. I'm going to get an internet profile too, and I'm going to date way more than you. So I literally had one of my friends break it down to me. I joined a bunch of different internet dating sites. And you know how people talk about how they hate internet dating?
Yeah.
That was not my experience. I had a blast. I was going out on dates 5 or 6 days a week.
Yeah.
I was getting laid by nobody's business. I was dating, seriously, I was dating at one point like 5 different guys. Like, I was just like loving it, you know? And so one day I'm on my way to this date, and on my way to my date. So I was having an awesome time dating, right? I was like dating seriously like 5 different guys. I was having so much fun, and so this one day I'm on my way to this date, and now this is a guy who I had been talking to for a while, but he was we had been talking for over a month, but he was away on business, and so that's why we hadn't met. So he was finally coming back to LA, and we were finally gonna meet, right? And so So something happened though that I was kind of questioning. So when we were setting up the date, like I said, we've been talking for over a month, and when we were setting up the date, I say to him, wow, we've been talking for over a month. And when I say talking, it was not only chatting, we talked on the phone, we FaceTimed, like we actually talked.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, we should exchange Facebook information. And he said no. And so since I was still new to dating, I wasn't sure if I was like, is this common? Does this happen? And I was a little confused, but, I was like, is this a red flag? I didn't know. So cut to, I'm on my way to the date, but I had a couple of hours to kill. I had this friend who was having an afternoon party. These were two friends of mine who were Australian, and they were having an Australia Day party. So I go to the party. My plan was I was going to kill a couple of hours and then go to the date. So I'm there. I'm talking to a friend of mine. I literally told my friend, oh my God, I'm having so much fun dating right now. I'm really enjoying being single. And as I'm telling my friend the story, my friend gets this weird look on his face. And I'm like, what? And he's like, that guy's listening to our conversation. And I look over, and there's this guy, kind of annoying, who's like listening to our conversation, right? And I went, so what do you think since you're eavesdropping on our conversation anyway? And the guy was really drunk, right? Guy was really drunk, kind of annoying. And the guy in this British accent says, oh, well, let's get this out of the way right now. Are you a top or a bottom? And I'm like, I'm thinking, who is this pig?
Yeah.
Who is it? Yeah. So I go, well, wouldn't you like to know?
Yeah.
And so my friend and I walk away, and the guy follows us, right? And the guy just like wouldn't leave us alone. And the guy was really annoying me, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to try something out on this guy, because I was still questioning the whole Facebook thing. Right. And I go, hey, what's your Facebook information? The guy gives me his Facebook information. He gives me his phone number, like everything.
Yeah, right away.
Right away. And so then I'm getting ready to leave. And so I say goodbye to the guy, and the guy's like, well, where are you going? And I was like, out. And he's like, well, with who? And I go, a friend. And he's like, well, can I come? And I'm like, no. So I leave. I go on the date with the guy who I had the date with. The date is horrible.
Oh, no.
The date's horrible. One of the things that the guy said on his profile was, I'm the best kisser that you've ever experienced, and you're going to kiss me, and you're going to fall in love. Well, that was the worst kiss I'd ever had from anybody. It was like really gross, right?
Ew.
So then I find the phone number the next day after this date, and I'm like, you know what? I'll give the drunk British guy a call.
Yeah.
So I call him. My plan was, you know what? I'll meet him for a drink, and then I'll stay for like an hour, and then I'll go. So I meet him for the drink. 4 hours later, we're still chatting, all right?
Wow.
So later on that week, I was supposed to go on this date with this other guy to like this. Okay, so years ago, I don't know if you ever did this, but years ago downtown, they used to shut down Broadway in LA and have like this big street fair, and all the old theaters on Broadway in LA, they would open them up, and so you could go and check them out and stuff.
That's so cool.
So I was supposed to go to the street fair with this other guy, right? And the other guy was a vegetarian. I was a vegetarian too. He invited me to go to the street fair thing, and he asked, is there vegetarian food there? And I'm like, well, yeah. But he kept on bugging me about it. Like every day he would bug me about it. So I was like, I want to go to the street fair, but I don't want to go with this guy, so maybe I'll call the drunk British guy, and if the drunk British guy wants to go, I'll break the date with this guy and go with the drunk British guy. So, call the drunk British guy wanted to go on the date, get caught, because we posted on Facebook, so I get caught by the other guy, right? So then, the drunk British guy and I start dating, right? So cut to like 8 months later. He's here on a work visa. And so because of the orange one, his job was that he worked at an English as a second language school. And so because of the orange one, Trump, people from overseas didn't want to come here to learn English anymore. So this school lost a lot of their students and it was financially in trouble. And so what a lot of countries do, what a lot of companies do is they get rid of the people making the most money first. So they informed him, the drunk British guy, that he was going to be laid off, right? And he was here on a work visa. And so we needed to figure something out because he was going to have to leave in 2 weeks. So a friend of his had this immigration lawyer. And so we're like, let's go talk to the immigration lawyer. So we go to the immigration lawyer. And the immigration lawyer is like, so you two were dating, right? And we're like, yeah. And she's like, do you see yourself getting serious? And we're like, yeah, we're getting serious. And so she's like, well, if I were you, I would get married as soon as possible. I could do it for you right now if you want.
What?
So we got married on the spot.
No, you
didn't. On his lunch hour, yes.
No, you did not.
Yes, we did.
How long had you known him? You'd known him for how long?
We've been together for 8 months.
Oh, my God.
So we met in January. We got married in November.
Wow.
So we got married, and I was like, oh, well, there goes the soap opera wedding. I guess I'm not going to have one, because we got married on the spot. Which, the way that we got married is a good story. It is a good story.
It's sweet.
But So we got married, and so I have this old friend who is like the Southern Belle, who I went to acting school with in New York, and we stayed friends. We've been friends for over 30 years, and so she lived. So if you listeners don't live in LA, there's a neighborhood in LA called Hancock Park, and it is like a neighborhood full of mansions. The mayor lives there. And Hancock Park, actually, I believe, predates Beverly Hills.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. Hancock Park was created for the executives at Paramount, and Paramount opened in 1927. So they built the Hancock Park for all the, Cecil B. DeMille and all those people, Mae West and Rudy Valentino, all those old Hollywood stars, they all lived in Hancock Park.
So my friend was married, and she lived in Hancock Park, and so my friend was like, well, I insist on throwing a party for you. Let's have a party. So we were like, okay. And so so she was like, well, just give me a list of how many people you want. So we settled on Cinco de Mayo, and we're gonna make it a Cinco de Mayo party. And so I gave her a list of 20 people, and she's like, oh, come on, you can have more than that. So then I added a list, and then added like 30 more people to the list, so 50, nice round number. She's like, no, you could have more than that. And I'm like, okay, so how many people, what's my limit? And she's like, I don't know, 200? So I was like, okay. And so I was like, okay, so then let's just turn it into a big Cinco de Mayo party then. So for the catering, we got like a food truck. But I had a friend who knew a food truck person. So my friend's like, well, we'll just throw this in, right?
Like I had another wedding gift. As your wedding gift? Wow.
Yeah. So my friend in this Hancock Park house had the house had a guest house that for you and me would be like a house.
Yeah, sure.
So she was like, my sister was coming from out of town. So my friend was like, well, if you have any out of town guests who need a place to stay, they could just stay in this house in the back, right?
Oh, God.
And so then someone else introduced us to a DJ. One of my other friends was like, you know what my gift will be to you? My gift will be your wedding cake. I'll make a wedding cake.
That's
and
so
And so then my friend and her husband like doing all this stuff. So all of a sudden we're having this big, huge, splashy party, right? And then we thought, well, you know what we should do? We should renew our vows again just in front of our friends and stuff. And so I got one of my very good friends to kind of take us through our vows again.
Wow.
And every single person who was invited showed up.
Wow.
So we're getting ready to say our vows, and I look around and I see all of my friends there in this fabulous mansion, and I realized, oh my God, I'm getting my soap opera wedding. I'm getting the splashy soap opera wedding that I always wanted.
Yeah.
And we renewed our vows, and I was there with my 200 people who I genuinely liked, and in the end, I got the wedding that I always wanted.
Wow. Wow. Tell me about what you guys wore.
We both wore like suits, matching black suits, and with he wore blue tie, I wore a purple tie. That was the first time that I used a pocket square, which now I do love a good pocket square. And it turned out, and it just turned out to be like this fabulous, fabulous occasion, which we spent next to no money for.
That's so wonderful. It really seems like everything came from the heart, and then that's why it kind of came together as such a fun party. Like everybody was donating because they really wanted to see this. Plus, you're in this mansion in the middle of LA. You couldn't be in a better location. And of course, you know the weather's going to be good. And you guys are so fun. Boy, oh boy, that's awesome. That is a great story. That is really beautiful.
Thank you.
Did you have flowers?
We did. Someone donated the flowers.
Wow. What kind of flowers? Do you remember?
It was, what did we have? It was like a mixture of like roses and just, my friend picked them out. The hostess of the party. So like I said, if you think of Southern Belle, she is like the picture of like a Southern Belle. Like, her mom was like Miss Arkansas 1950 something. Like she's like,
She was ready to entertain.
Yes.
That's so sweet. That's so neat. And did she actually like rent chairs and stuff?
Yes. And porta potties.
Wow.
She rented chairs and porta potties.
And then your sister came and stayed in the guest house.
My sister and my niece, my husband is British and Canadian, so people from Canada came, people from the UK came, people literally from all over the world came. Some of my old friends who I know from touring in the Fringe Festival circuit came.
That's so wonderful.
Friends from high school. I went to high school in Spain. Friends from high school showed up.
Jesus, 200 people is a lot. Like 100, it's like, okay, I got that. I could throw 100 people together. But 200, that's a lot of people, man.
This house was so big, so we had like a taco truck, right? This house was so big, the taco truck fit in the backyard.
That's so funny. That's really funny. Wow, that's so special. Let me ask you, why do you call your husband the drunk British guy? Because I'm only asking because I never heard anywhere in this story that he was drunk even the first time you met him.
Oh, he was drunk when I met him. He was wasted.
Well, wait, why do you say that? What do you mean by that?
Because his opening line to me was, let's get this out of the way. Are you a top or a bottom?
Oh, that's the guy that said that?
Yes, my husband.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I did not put all that together. Oh my gosh. That is so crass.
Yeah, I know. And you've met him, and you know that he's not like that, so he must have been drunk. Because that was my first impression of him. I was like, you're a pig.
I thought one one of the first things that impressed you was that he didn't have any problem giving you his Facebook, right? He just said, oh, yeah, here, right?
Well, that's what softened me a little bit. Because I'm like, okay, this other guy was like running a game then.
Yeah, you shouldn't. If you can't show somebody your Facebook page, man, you are hiding something for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so then how did you and the drunk British guy, what's his name again? Your husband?
John.
How did you and John get busted at the street fair? In other words, that other guy was there and he saw you?
Because, we posted on Facebook. We posted pictures, and then the other guy was like, you went? Like, under one of the pictures.
Did he? Oh, he posted right under the photo? That's funny. Did you ever apologize? Did you just say, hey, man, what can I say? What can I tell you?
I didn't talk to him again.
Hey, man, that's why it's called dating. You know what I mean? That's why it's called dating. Don't take anything I say, to the heart, because we're just dating, let it go.
And like I said, this is all going on when I was 50, right? Yeah. So, we're all adults here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that when you are a little bit older, that makes the funnest wedding because everybody is a little more mature and people can actually see it lasting. When you go to somebody's wedding and they're in their 20s, let's face it, that's their first wedding.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, that's their first wedding. There's no way. No way. Could it last? You just can't be. I just don't see that happening anymore. I mean, I guess so. If you now have been in a relationship for 30 years or 40 years and this is what it's always been, I guess that's your headspace. But if you're like 19 or 20 now and you're looking at your future and you're thinking that getting married in your 20s would last, it's like you're so misled. You're so naive,
And I tell people, it's like, your 20s were meant to have fun.
Yes, and your 30s, if you ask me. But
right.
I mean, I got married in my 20s, it didn't work. I got married in my 30s, it didn't work. So I'm not exactly sure what the actual answer is, but I think you and John did it the right way. That sounds very beautiful.
Like I said, my first wedding was when I was 50.
That's wonderful. What that is, that's a beautiful day. I bet you have wonderful photos and great memories.
Yes.
That's neat. That's wonderful.
Yes.
Hey, you guys, make sure you go over there and check out Les in his podcast, A Lifetime of Hallmark. It's so funny. Really. It's so silly and so funny. Check that out, you guys. And again, follow Les over there on Instagram at Kurkendaal. All right, you guys, we're going to wrap it up. But thank you so much again for listening to Storyworthy. This has been a lot of fun. And of course, join us next week for all new stories. And don't forget to check out My Life in 3 Songs exclusively on Spotify. All right, you guys, one more time on behalf of the very talented Les Kurkendaal-Barrett, thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Christine Blackburn saying, make it a story-worthy week.
Follow me, I'll take you down to the river. Follow me, I'll keep you silent.
Thanks for joining us on the Storyworthy podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.